Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Legislative and Operations. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblymember Cole. Here. Dickman. Here. Edgeworth. Present. Gonzalez. Hibbets. Here. Howdy. Miller. Here. Monroe Moreno. Here. Moore. Here. Nadeem. Present. Chair Mosca.
And I am here, and if you could please mark Assemblymember Hadigi as well as Assemblymember Gonzalez present as they arrive. Welcome to the audience in Carson City, those joining by video conference in Las Vegas, and those listening over the internet. Before we begin, I'd like to make several housekeeping announcements. Please silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee secretary. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state and spell your name and state any affiliation for the record, then turn off the microphone each time you're done speaking. There are hard copies of the meeting materials available for members of the public. Members of the public may also access electronic copies of the materials on the Nevada Legislature's website. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the meeting. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with another's positions. And finally, committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not see that as a sign of inattention or disrespect. And so everyone knows, we will be taking the agenda out of order today. We will first hear AB 73, followed by AB 92, and finally AB 477. With that, I will now open the hearing on Assembly Bill 73. This measure establishes requirements for certain communications relating to an election. And we have the Secretary of State's office here today to present at the table. They're ready to go. And as a reminder, please limit your presentation to 15 minutes, and then we will do questions. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair Mosca and members of the committee. For the record, I am Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. I am joined by Chief Deputy Gabriel Tequera in Las Vegas and Deputy for Elections Mark Volashin, who's with me right here. We are here today to provide you with an overview of Assembly Bill 73 regarding artificial intelligence in elections, and then take your questions. Before we get into the slideshow, I want to emphasize that modernization, innovation, and transparency are the priorities for the Secretary's office. As technology advances, government must advance with it, or we will be left behind. Nevada voters need to be able to make informed decisions, and campaigns should be held accountable for providing transparency. Over the last 30 years, there have been many changes to how candidates campaign for elected office. The creation of the internet and massive expansion of social media changed the very methods a candidate would use to communicate with their voters. While not walking neighborhoods and knocking on doors will always be an important part of the campaign, how campaigns talk to voters has always been updated alongside the available technology. The changing state demographics have also led to similar changes in how we talk to voters. Back in 1990, Clark had about 300,000 registered voters, only 1/5 of how many they have today. Over the years, our legislature has found ways to address these changes. This slide shows just 3 of the many legislative updates to address modernization and transparency. For example, 2 of the bills referenced on this slide changed the law to require certain disclosures on candidate websites and text messages. Another required the Secretary of State to publish campaign finance information on our website. All were done to increase the public's awareness and to increase transparency so that voters could make informed decisions when they cast their vote. Artificial intelligence, or AI, presents another turning point when it comes to campaigning for elected office. While AI may be used to create amusing pictures of, say, George Washington surfing at Lake Tahoe, there are so many generative AI tools available for use that is a certainty they are going to be used during political campaigns. Some will be lighthearted, but slightly less obvious than the previous one, like this fake picture of a man surrounded by puppies. We all love puppies. But others may be nefarious in the purpose. I will also note it doesn't take much work to create these artificial images. It's as easy as downloading an app, which indicates that as time goes on, AI could be utilized more broadly than we've seen in past elections. I want to clarify for the record that AB 73 does not attempt to limit protected political speech. The First Amendment to our Constitution is sacred, and we take the protection it provides very seriously when it comes to the administration of elections. Assembly Bill 73 does not seek to block or prevent the use of AI, but instead attempts to simply create requirements surrounding the use of AI for transparency's sake, and so that voters can continue to make informed decisions. There would be required disclosures, similar to what is under the picture on this slide. This requirement for disclosures would not only apply to those items that have a retail cost of less than $5, which is consistent with other similar items as already identified in statute. I'll pass it off to Gabriel in Las Vegas.
Gabriel DeCara for the record. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The original draft of this bill was based on similar legislation. Obviously, AI bills have been passing all over the country. This specific bill was based on legislation that passed in the state of Washington that we felt represented the best building blocks for legislation of this type in Nevada. But every state is unique, and so are their election laws. As such, there's a conceptual amendment to this bill adjusting several of the sections, which we've provided to LCB and the committee. These amendments were made to narrow the scope of the bill to the key elements and for purposes of clarity. One new addition to the bill is creating a personal cause of action, allowing a candidate that has been targeted by a deceptive or fraudulent deepfake without disclaimer to seek relief through the legal system. I also want to add that we've had outreach from a number of stakeholders across the media landscape about the liability language included in the amendment, and we look forward to working alongside them to find language that works for everyone. We want to ensure that candidates have the ability to halt the spread of harmful images without the required disclosure, not create liability issues for news outlets reporting on it.
Cisco Aguilar, for the record, as the world changes and political campaigns change how they communicate with voters, we need to make sure we are adapting our laws as well. I firmly believe that Assembly Bill 73 will be a major step forward in the modernization while also increasing transparency for voters. This concludes our presentation. We look forward to any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. That was definitely under your 15 minutes, so thank you. Committee members, do we have any questions? Okay, thank you. We will start with Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Thank you for the, can you hear me? I feel like I'm far away from the mic. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question on the amendment, section 2, the 3B. Why are you removing that phrase from that?
Gabriel DeCara for the record. So there was concern when we were having meetings about this bill that there are other types of image manipulation that are very commonly used in campaigns. Not to say that this has been done to any candidate in this meeting or any other, but for example, let's say you got a little stain on your shirt and you don't want a stain on your shirt, but that's the best picture you got because you're holding 2 smiling babies and the babies were frowning in all the other pictures. And so you use Photoshop, for example, to clean up that particular stain. We don't want the use of any kind of technology that could be used to manipulate images to potentially trigger the disclaimer. We wanted to really focus on generative AI, the kinds of models that can either take a video of you and turn it into a video of you saying something that you never said, or generate an image out of whole cloth. So it was really to narrow the scope so it's clear that we're not saying if you've got a really bad zit that day, you can't Photoshop it off. We're saying, you know, if an image is manipulated using these tools, that there should be some kind of disclosure.
Thank you so much for the answer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next question, Assemblymember Nadeem.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation and bringing up such an important issue. So my question is that regarding the AI generated image, do they need, they can be used, but they need the disclosure or they cannot be used at all?
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. Thank you for your question, Assembly Member. No, they can use AI as long as the disclosure is included.
Okay, so they just need the disclosure.
That is correct.
Thank you so
Because the
much.
voter needs to understand that the image is not coming from a true source, that it's coming from a AI-generated app.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, next question, Assemblymember Edgeworth.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. If we weren't talking about a stain on our shirt or a zit on our face, and if hypothetically someone had photoshopped your face onto a scenario that you had never been at, that wouldn't be triggered if an AI tool would not be the thing generating it, if it was just plain Photoshop. Is that accurate?
Gabriel DeCara, for the record, under this amendment, yes, that is accurate. And I do want to draw attention back to the definition of AI in the bill. While we did remove that phrase, that other technology, the definition here that would require the disclosure requires specifically, and it's in the definition of synthetic media, which is on page 2, section 2, page 3, starting in subsection D. It is to create a realistic but false image, audio recording or video recording that produces a depiction that to a reasonable natural person is of a real natural person, but that did not actually occur in reality, or a fundamentally different understanding or impression of the appearance, action, or speech of a person than what a reasonable natural person would have from viewing or listening to the unaltered record. So, obviously there's a lot of legalese here, but my understanding is that something simple that does not fundamentally alter or create a false image would not necessarily raise to the level of the disclosure, but something that creates a false image, creates an image that never happened, would. And I will say there are other elements of Chapter 294A. This relates to political communications. This disclosure, this disclaimer is only required on political communications. It is not required on something that is generated for the purpose of satire, right? Because we would not want to interfere with anyone's First Amendment rights. So there's already a level of scrutiny here, which is, well, is this going on? Is this paid for by a campaign? Is this going out from a campaign source? So it is more narrow than just, say, any use of AI to alter someone's image. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Assemblymember Dickman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, thanks for being here. Good to see you guys. My question has to do with the fines, actually. How did you arrive at what these fines could be? It says it may not exceed 50,000, but what would it be more likely to be? More in line with some of the other fines that happen when you say don't put a disclaimer or a disclosure on your mailer that it was paid for by or something like that?
Gabriel DeCara, for the record, thank you for the question. So we originally did want a large fine to make clear that this practice, and I think coming from the Secretary's office, being responsible for a lot of enforcement of civil and criminal law when it comes to things like campaign finance and political communication, et cetera, we wanted to show that we are taking the potential for someone to generate a completely fraudulent video of a political candidate saying something that they never said in real life and using that for the purposes of their campaign. We wanted to show that we took it seriously. We did get some feedback that was potentially too serious. And so the conceptual amendment does remove that fine from the bill. However, Chapter 294A does give the Secretary of State's office authority to issue civil penalties in an amount not to exceed $10,000 per violation, the same as we do for as you said, other types of potential campaign finance violations. So it's at the discretion of the Secretary of State's office not to exceed $10,000, the same as any other potential violation in 294A. Thank you.
Thank you. I was looking to see if that was in the amendment, and I didn't find it before I got my question. So thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And seeing no more other questions, oh, we do have other questions. We'll go Assemblymember Cole, then Assemblymember Hibbets.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Thank you. So my question, I'm looking at your amendment and I'm looking at some of the additional language regarding liability of platforms and media entities. And I see this as being a way to address some of the TechNet issues and motion picture issues that were raised. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of if I was in their shoes, right? Where I'm allowed to do it, but then I have to have a disclosure if there are questions about the authenticity of the materially deceptive or audio or visual media. And I guess my question is, how would you know? Like, some of this could be very nuanced, very hard to determine that there's an issue there. So I look at it, if I was in their place, I would cover my butt every time and have that in there, and then every ad would have that disclosure, and so it would become meaningless.
Thank you for the question. Assemblymember Mark Volashin, for the record, M-A-R-K, last name W-L-A-S-C-H-I-N. You raise an excellent point, and that's, I think, the intent of these adjustments, the amendments to the bill, are to take away the concern from the broadcasters. They receive something, who knows what it is or how minute of a change may have been applied. But that way, if, over the course of weeks or months, somebody else identifies that it was generative AI or falls under the provisions of this bill, then the liability goes back to the organization or the entity, the individual maybe, who provided that to them without it falling on that agency that broadcast it.
Gabriel DeCara for the record. Yes, absolutely. And additionally, the intent, and again, we look forward to working with TechNet, the broadcasters, the motion picture folks. We do not consider the liability language final language. It's exactly as Deputy Volashin said. And a key element here is we want to make sure that the liability is on the person who is doing the political communication. If a campaign ad shows on Fox 5 in Las Vegas, the hope, the intent of requiring things like a paid for by disclosure, which would also be required for similar political communications, is that it's clear to the viewer that it's not the TV channel that is, saying to elect Assemblymember Cole. It's the person who has placed the ad. And in walking back that definition a little bit to be very specific to AI and not to include some other kind of common methods of adjusting images, that we are trying to narrow the scope enough that not everyone is putting incorrectly on every one of their communications that, this image has been manipulated.
Assemblymember Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair. My question is kind of a follow-up on the fine question. Let's say that I know the original language has been stricken in the amendment, but it still falls under the line of question. Let's say I send out 10,000 mailers with an AI-generated image and don't disclose it. Is that 10,000 violations, up to $10,000 each? Or is it one violation because it's one mailer to 10,000 people?
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember Mark Volashin, for the record. It really varies, and it depends. On a case-by-case basis, which I know is a bit of a cop-out of an answer, and I apologize for that up front. But the reality is that when we receive an allegation of a violation of NRS 294A, we have to look at the circumstances and, how did it go? Did we notify the individual they shouldn't have done that, and then they still sent out the other 9,999 and those sorts of things? So it really is situationally dependent. But again, in a case like that, one mailer that went out, I think is very similar in concept to when we are notified about a lack of a disclosure on a campaign sign. We don't say, well, however many signs you put out, we're going to fine you for each one of those. We simply say, you need to have paid for by on the bottom of your signs. Please fix them. But I put out, 45,000 across Clark County. maybe get to work then, is usually the response. But yes, sir, it does vary on the situation.
Gabriel DeCara for the record. I want to add, we have another bill coming up that will hopefully be before this committee before too long relating to campaign finance. And an element of that bill will be instituting a hearings process for penalties and fines to really formalize the process by which a candidate can say, the Secretary of State's office has fined me, I feel that fine is unfair, and putting a process in so that that can be disputed, can go to a hearing officer, et cetera. So we want to make sure that we are not asking for unfettered authority to be able to fine everyone $100,000 whenever we want to, as helpful as that would be fiscally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and for the record, depends is my least favorite answer from the government.
Thank you, and our last comment will be from Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Not a question, just a comment. Perhaps if you did fine them for each and every sign, they'd stop violating it. Just saying.
Okay, thank you. I see no other questions. Okay, we thank you, and my question was answered, so I appreciate that. And we will now open up testimony. So today, due to time constraints, we will limit testimony to 30 minutes for each side. So 30 minutes for support testimony, 30 minutes for opposition testimony, and 30 minutes for neutral. Please feel free to say ditto if you have similar testimony. And as a reminder, you could submit your full written testimony up to the committee up to 24 hours after the meeting. We will first start with testimony and support here in Carson City, so thank you for filling the chairs. Each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Please keep your comments to the bill and not about the bill's sponsor. Members of the public may provide testimony in person or over the phone by calling 888-475-4499 and entering the meeting ID 825-8021-1526. And remember, state and spell your name for the record, which helps our committee secretary. In Carson City, you may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, Chair Mosca. My name is Joe Guild, G-U-I-L-D. Pardon me, I represent the Motion Picture Association. And you have in front of you our proposed amendment. I was just able to read this for the first time. I'm pretty sure we're talking about periods and maybe a word or two. And I've already talked to Mark Welshon about this, and we're going to get together and reconcile any problems, but I don't really anticipate any, and be happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ryan Vortish. That's spelled R-Y-A-N, last name V-O-R-T-I-S-C-H, and I am the Northern Nevada Democracy Coordinator of Silver State Voices. I'm here to testify in support of AB 73 on behalf of my organization and the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. Digitally manipulated campaign communications have the potential to drastically alter voters' perspectives of candidates and issues, which is especially harmful if they have been edited in such a way as to create a perception of events that have not occurred. Nevada voters deserve better than to face deception in matters as serious as elections, which is why we are in strong support of the disclosure requirements proposed in this bill. We appreciate the Secretary of State's office leadership on this nuanced issue, and we urge you to pass AB 73, allowing Nevada to join the other 20 states that have addressed this critical issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other support in Carson City, we will move to Las Vegas.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Mosca and members of the committee. My name is Maureen Schaefer, S-C-H-A-F-E-R, and I'm the Executive Director of the Council for a Better Nevada. I'd also like to thank Secretary Aguilar and his staff for bringing this bill forward. We are testifying in support of AB 73. While we have seen creativity and economy soar via technological innovation, there is often a cautionary edge to that opportunity. Digital deepfakes that convincingly depict people saying or doing things that they did not actually say or do are an imminent danger to our election process and system. When used maliciously within the election process, these technologies can misdirect reality, undermine trust and damage reputations with potentially dire consequences for democratic processes. The outcomes of these actions within the political landscape bring damage to political candidates, their offices, and can also influence election results. AB 73 is needed to modernize and protect the integrity of Nevada's election system while keeping up with the evolution of technology and how it is utilized both positively and negatively in various scenarios. I want to thank the committee and Secretary Aguilar for bringing this legislation forward. Please support AB 73. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others in Las Vegas, AVH, we can please open the phone lines for support of AB 73.
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 73, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Chair, members of the committee, my name is Shelby Swartz. I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. We strongly support this bill. It will protect the integrity of our institutions by requiring honest disclosures when AI-generated synthetic media is used in political communication. Unchecked disinformation threatens democracy. My staff works to monitor disinformation every single day. This bill sets a strong precedent requiring transparency, enforcing penalties, and upholding honest speech. Thank you so much for bringing this bill forward, and we urge you to please support it.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, we have no additional callers in support at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. We will now move to testimony in opposition. If you're here in opposition of Assembly Bill 73, we will start here in Carson City. Don't forget to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good to see you. My first time in front of you this session. For the record, Trey Abney, Trayabney, here today representing the Nevada Broadcasters Association. We have television and radio stations throughout the state. We do oppose this bill as written, but I am going to be very nice about it, and here's why. To Assemblymember Cole's point, we were just concerned about having the liability for ads and other communications that are handed to us, to broadcasters, and the broadcasters have no way of knowing the source of that or if they were AI generated or anything else. We've been working very closely with the Secretary and with Mark and Gabriel and his team. They've been excellent to work with. We're just not quite there yet with the amendment language that you see that they provided. In fact, we've got a call even with Gabriel tomorrow. We are actively working on this. We have no issues whatsoever with the underlying point of the bill. Just want to make sure that we're not held liable for stuff that we did not produce. So with that, Madam Chair, thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Edith Duarte with Western Public Affairs, today representing TechNet. And I am here in opposition, but only because of the rules of this committee. I support this bill. We're working through, similarly to what Trey just mentioned, we're working through some of the liability language, the AI definition, and a few other details. Gabriel and the Secretary of State have been wonderful to work with, and I'm very grateful for the amendment. So we're looking forward to continuing that, and hope that we can get to a place where we can be in support.
And could you just spell your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Edith, E-D-I-T-H, Duarte, D-U-A-R-T-E. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, seeing no other opposition here in Carson City, we will move to Las Vegas. Seeing no one coming to the table, we will go to the phone lines for opposition of AB 73.
If you would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 73, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon. My name is Iris Stone, IRISSTONE. I can understand the requirements for political entities to disclose a clear communication stating when the synthetic media item has been altered or enhanced by artificial intelligence techniques. I support that part of the bill. However, the requirement in Section 3 to submit an electronic copy of the communication to the Secretary of State, who will then publish it on the Nevada website is a step too far. What if the Secretary of State's office doesn't agree with the communication and for some technical reason rejects it? That would violate the entity's freedom of speech. In addition, it potentially violates the political entity's rights to privacy, especially if the material is considered proprietary and or meant only for the consumption of certain groups or members. Section 3 will result also in more regulatory overreach and add operational expenses for the entities in question, without really any clear benefit. It also means more workload and budget requirements for the Secretary of State's office to store and maintain all these electronic objects on Nevada's computer system. I urge you to reject Section 3 of AB 73. Thank you very much.
Thank you. AVH, next caller, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellen Gifford, E-L-L-E-N, G as in George, I-F-F as in Frank, O-R-D as in David. The first question that must come to mind when reviewing a proposed bill should be, who or what will benefit from the bill? AB 73 seeks to mandate that any person, committee for political action, political party, or committee sponsored by a political party must provide an electronic copy of every communication they produce in the form of a video, text, message, internet website page, or electronic mailing to the Secretary of State if more than $100 was spent on producing that communication. What's more, no matter what communication strategy in terms of schedule and delivery the developers have planned for these communications, the Secretary of State's office is going to place the copies of their communications on the Secretary of State internet website, a sizable undertaking in terms of workload and storage resources. So who benefits from this proposal? Certainly not the persons who develop the communications. They now have the additional burden of transmitting every communication to the Secretary of State. Do the people of Nevada benefit? There is certainly no indication of that. In fact, they're footing the bill, literally. So who or what is left to benefit from this bill? Could this yet be another display of expansion for the Secretary of State's office? It's been happening a lot lately. More people, more budget, and lots more control. I oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. AVH, next caller.
Hello, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Scott Gavorski, S-C-O-T-T, last name G-A-V-O-R-S-K-Y. I'm from Elko, and I stand opposed to this bill. One of the problems I see is that the statute, the NRS 294A that's being modified, does not deal with content of campaign communications except in 3 very limited cases. That is the regulation of the use of the terms re-elect and incumbent, both of which the state is the authorized authority keeping those records, and any type of material that might count as a state endorsement, which again, the state has a direct say in that. Adding AB 73 as written into NRS 294 creates a situation where now we have a precedent for the state to regulate content of political communications, which I think is a very, very dangerous step for the state to make. It might be justified in terms of disclosing campaign contributions, but not in terms of trying to regulate the specific content of political speech outside the state's purview. Now, while I understand the constitutional or the proposed conceptual amendment would eliminate Section 3, there's also a real problem with the regulation of speech preemptively by the state. Near v. Minnesota in 1931, it has established longstanding law that questions the ability of the state to preemptively regulate the content of political speech based on any type of maliciousness or other types of factors. So with those in mind, I think this creates a very dangerous precedent that opens the door for de jure state regulation of content beyond just the AI question, and potentially would bring Nevada into a whole range of constitutional issues. I stand opposed to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. AVH, next caller.
Hi, Yolanda Knack, Yolanda, last name Knaak. My opposition has to do with the same issues of the last three callers. Thank you.
Thank you. AVH, next caller.
Thank you, Chair. We have no additional callers in opposition at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. And with that, we will now open testimony in neutral for Assembly Bill 73. We will start here in Carson City. Seeing none, we will go down to Las Vegas for testimony in neutral. Seeing none, we'll move back to the phone lines. AVH, testimony in neutral, please.
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 73, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to provide testimony in neutral.
Thank you. And with that, Secretary, I invite you for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Cisco Aguilar, for the record, Secretary of State. Just to clarify, the library storage portion of the bill has been amended. That no longer exists. So we appreciate the comments. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate your engagement. Again, this is the most important part of this bill is just voter education, that voters understand the content that they're consuming so that they can make informed decisions about their vote.
Gabriel DeCara for the record. Agree absolutely with the Secretary. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, the goal of this is not to regulate speech in any way. It is to require a disclosure when there is a method of communication being used. I would point to NRS 294A 341 regarding persuasive polls. If you are running a poll that is ostensibly intended to persuade the voter to vote for a candidate of choice, you must include a disclaimer in that poll that it is a political communication. It's not actually an attempt to gather information. It's an attempt to persuade a voter. Nevada statute already allows the Secretary, allows the legislature, right, to provide that kind of disclosure when necessary, as the Secretary said, to inform the voter and ensure the voter has all of the relevant information prior to casting their ballot. This is not an attempt to limit speech in any way. Thank you.
And thank you so much. With that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 73. I will now open the hearing on Assembly Bill 92. This measure revises provisions relating to elections. We have our committee member, Assembly Member Dickman, presenting Assembly Bill 92. We'll give her a second. And as a reminder, please limit your presentation to 15 minutes, and you may begin when you are ready.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Jill Dickman, and I represent Assembly District 31 in Washoe County. I'm pleased to present this bill before you today, which allows major political parties to use rooms and spaces in public buildings. Prior to 2021, there was much in the statute that specifically dictated operations of political parties. For example, county conventions, the number of delegates permitted, precinct meetings prior to the convention, etc. Included in this statute was that state and county central committees of major political parties were able to use rooms and spaces in public buildings without charge for any purpose during the presidential election years and for precinct meetings in non-presidential election years, and at an equitable rate for the purposes other than precinct meetings during non-presidential election years, so like for central committee meetings. Senate Bill 292 of the 2021 session eliminated this authorization. Major political parties are no longer able to use public buildings for precinct meetings or other events. Assembly Bill 92 seeks to reinstate the requirement that rooms and spaces in public buildings be made available to the state or county central committees of major political parties. Since this language was removed from statute in 2021, political parties have faced significant challenges in securing adequate spaces for their functions. Political parties play a crucial role in organizing elections, informing voters, and fostering civic engagement. So I was asked if this would apply to all buildings open to the public, and someone gave me the example of such as a police station. Obviously, that was not the intent of the original language, and prior to SB 292, and it is not the intent of this bill. It's certain buildings, and traditionally it's been like high schools. This bill is quite simple. It provides that a public officer or employee in control of a room or space that is open to the general public and occupied by the state or a local government shall grant use of the room or space to a state or county central committee of a major political party upon application by the committee and if the room or space is available. The room or space shall be provided without charge during presidential election years and during other years for the purpose of holding a precinct meeting. If the major political party committee requests to use a public room or space during a non-presidential election year for a purpose other than holding a precinct meeting, the room or space shall be provided at a rate that does not exceed what any other group would be charged for the room or space. Finally, AB 92 defines a precinct meeting to mean a meeting of the state or central committee of a major political party held to elect delegates and alternates for a state or county convention of a major political party. Madam Chair, you may have seen that the Nevada System of Higher Education has put a loss of revenue fiscal note on the bill. I'm not sure why this was even sent to NSHE for a fiscal note. To my knowledge, at least in the 30 years I've been around this process, there's never been a precinct meeting, caucus, or convention held on an NSHE property. Also, presidential elections are only held every 4 years, yet the fiscal note has a cost for each year of the biennium. At any rate, I'm proposing an amendment to specifically exclude NSHE properties from this legislation. It was really never intended to include them. So that's all the amendment says. It just excludes the Nevada System of Higher Education. Chair Mosca and members of the committee, I thank you very much for taking the time to hear this. This concludes my presentation, and I urge your support of the bill and welcome your questions.
Thank you, Assembly Member. And with that, we'll open up for questions. Assembly Member Cole.
I feel like I ask a question every single time. So my question is, I don't know how to phrase this. So would this require, say, a school to open itself up for these kind of meetings, whether or not they open themselves up for any other meetings? Or is it just like if they're doing it for, say, a church meeting and then they have to do it for this? Do you know what I mean? I don't think I phrased that very well.
Not exactly. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but this was in statute for probably at least 30 years. And so I don't really know how it affected other types of meetings. It was specifically geared towards political parties and their functions. So
I'm not sure. It's exactly the same language?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect.
As what was removed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? And then I'll just ask, because I know that the NSHE fiscal note was put on there. So do you foresee, I know you said schools, any other public spaces? I could foresee that there are public spaces at even like the Regional Transportation Commission or other things that are public. Like, what's the intent? Thank you.
Well, the intent is pretty much what it always was. And when it was in statute prior to 21, and the only places that I know of that have been used for these purposes are schools. And mostly high schools, because the elementary schools and the middle schools, those kids don't drive, so they don't need parking lots. And there were issues with previous meetings where we were able to get into, say, a middle school, but then there was no place to park, so we had all these elderly people and disabled people who had to figure out how to get in. So some people were dropped off, but some were trying to walk all this way, whereas in high schools, there's plenty of parking.
Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Thank you so much. My question is, sorry, It's a piece of leaf in my mouth, apologies. What have folks been doing, or where have they been having these meetings since this law was changed in 2021?
Jill Dickman, for the record. Well, I know in some cases they've had to use rooms in casinos, which are very expensive. And I think for the caucuses that were held, I believe they were able to use some, like I said, grade schools and middle schools. But those don't work because partly they don't have big rooms like gymnasiums like high schools do. And they also don't have any parking. So, but the casinos are really expensive to use for that purpose.
Thank you, committee. Any other questions? Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your preparation for the bill, did you find out, going back through legislative history, why it was taken out of statute in 21?
I was here in 2021. I was on the legislative operation. They took out all of that section that told political parties how they had to operate. And I think it was partly because it was changed to primaries. You know, when we had caucuses, there were extremely explicit instructions in statute on how many delegates you could have per population or, you know, registered voters. And I just think, honestly, I think the whole statute was just struck, and maybe that wasn't even intended. I don't know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think those are all our questions, so we will move, thank you. Thank you, Assemblymember. We will move first into testimony in support. Again, we will limit our testimony to 30 minutes for each side, so 30 minutes of support, 30 minutes for opposition, and 30 minutes for neutral, and feel free to say ditto if you feel fit. So we'll now open up testimony in Carson City for support of Assembly Bill 92. Remember, each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Please keep your comments to the bill and not the bill's sponsor. And please remember to state and spell your name for the record. If you will be calling over the phone, the number is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 825-8021-1526. We'll start here in Carson City.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Bruce Parks, BRUCEPARKS. I'm chairman of the Washoe County Republican Party, and I can assure you that it's put us in a difficult position when those provisions of NRS 293 were rescinded as it pertained to the major political parties. We have to go hat in hand to our public officers, to the school districts, wherever, and basically, if it please the king, may we use your buildings for the conduct of our political activities. I appreciate you mentioning fiscal notes. I would like to inform this body that historically, we've never used any of the Nevada System of Higher Education buildings, partly because we don't want to incur the cost of added security that might be necessary. This should be a bipartisan effort here. This not only affects the Republican Party, it definitely affects my counterparts in the Democrat Party as well. This last election season was particularly difficult. We were restricted to facilities that did not adequately provide for parking, for handicapped folks. It was a major issue. We could have been much more effective in our efforts had we been allowed to use the facilities that we have historically used, which is basically the high schools, on rare occasions, libraries. But prior to the rescinding of those provisions of NRS 293, that is what was made available to us. That is what we utilized. And we had no problem paying a nominal fee for custodial services after we finished our activities for any possible cleanup, although we do like to think that we clean up well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hello, Chair Masco and committee, Jessica Glover, Jessica Glover. As I was recently doing some community service for a political group, my position was to call different vendors to retain space for committee meetings. And the cost, anywhere from $1,200 to $5,000. Now, as I'm asking for your consideration to pass this bill, you at one point were running for your campaign and you wanted people to come and listen to you, city government, local government. People aren't going to be wanting to drink alcohol. They may have smoking, respiratory issues. So a casino where people are smoking and the air quality is not good isn't a good place for people to come and listen for long periods of time on local government. So I'm asking that you put considerations, the cost of people coming to listen, and everyone's health. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will, seeing no one else here in Carson City, we'll move to support down in Las Vegas. Don't forget to state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin when you're ready.
Devin Livesey, Devin, Liv as in Victor, Z as in Zebra, IEY. I am the vice chairman of the Clark County Republican Party. I can tell you from my experience down here when this was repealed doing the caucus last year, we were using everything from elementary schools to some high schools, meeting rooms in the back of bars, some churches, any place I could find, because as we are the largest population in the state, we had over 140 locations where we were running the caucus out of. It is a very nominal fee to use each school, agreed, but when you're using over 100 schools, the fee becomes excessive, not to mention the fact that the custodial services and the law enforcement services that we need to help maintain the peace at all those locations did add up. This is something that is not something that we do on a daily basis, but for just running our general meetings, which are every other month, and doing the caucus, which is every 4 years, the use of public buildings would be very great and very helpful to us. And as a commission, Mr. Park set up in Carson City, it is a bipartisan thing. It helps out both major parties, and both major parties would benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others in Las Vegas, AVH, can we please open the phone lines for support of Assembly Bill 92?
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 92, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Caller, if you're speaking, we do not hear you.
Caller, please press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Oh, hi, Yolanda Kanak, Yolanda, last name Knaak. I'm in support of this bill, basically for all the reasons that have been mentioned. Vote yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. AVH, next caller.
Good day, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is Dora Martinez, and as a blind constituent, I wholeheartedly hope that you all support this bill. Even though I don't drive, we do use a lot of buses, the public transportation, and paratransit. So if these are open to the, let's say, school, the bus can bring us close to the location and we can attend with no secondhand smoke or people gambling and disturbing and distracting my service dog. So please support this bill and thank you and take care.
Thank you, APH. Next caller.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Iris Stone, IRISSTONE. I'll make it short. I would like to ditto my support for AB 92 based on all the previous testimonies and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca and committee. I'm Jim DeGraffenreid, JIMDEGRAFFENREID. I'm Nevada's Republican National Committee man, and I'm here today in support of Assembly Bill 92. In the more than 20 years that I've been involved in planning these types of meetings, it was always a provision in Nevada law that allowed both the Republican and Democrat parties to hold precinct meetings and caucuses for the convenience of the public, but it was inadvertently eliminated in 2021 with the bill that eliminated much of NRS 293. We don't think that that was intentional. It was really only when the first precinct meetings were being planned after the removal that parties realized the problem. As Chairman Lisby noted, the problem is particularly serious in our larger counties where dozens of sites need to be attained and fees for that number of sites add up quickly. Janitorial fees were always allowed under the law, but this law, if it's reinstated, will help us avoid rental fees charged by private venues. If the law is left out, that hinders the efforts of all major parties to connect with voters and run precinct meetings. By reinstating these provisions, AB 92 promotes fairness in the political process, ensuring that everyone has equal opportunities to organize and engage with voters by encouraging informed and active participation in accessible public buildings. Thank you, and please pass Assembly Bill 92.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello, this is Ellen Gifford again, and I support AB 92. Please pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, we have no additional callers in support at this time.
Thank you. We will now move to support our testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 92. We'll start here in Carson City. Seeing none, we will move to Las Vegas for opposition of Assembly Bill 92. And seeing none, APH will go back to the phone lines for opposition of Assembly Bill 92.
If you would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 92, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to testify in opposition.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we will move to neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 92. First here in Carson City. Seeing none, we will go to Las Vegas for neutral. And seeing none, AVH will go back to you for neutral on Assembly Bill 92.
If you would like to testify for neutral of Assembly Bill 92, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to testify under neutral.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll invite Assembly Member Dickman up for closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. I just want to say taxpayers fund these public buildings, and I think it's appropriate for the public to use the buildings for civic functions. And I think if there were better options available for these meetings, we would encourage more voter participation. So I thank you for your attention, and I hope you will all support this common sense bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 92. I will now open the hearing on Assembly Bill 477. This measure revises provisions relating to the counting of incarcerated persons for purposes of the apportionment of the population for certain election districts. We have Assemblymember Hadigi coming up, and we will have her co-presenters come with her. I invite you to come to the table, and please limit your presentation to 15 minutes, and you may begin when you're ready.
Good late afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Sandra Howdigi, and I proudly represent Assembly District 41. Today, I'm presenting Assembly Bill 477 alongside my co-presenter, Emily Zamora from Silver State Voices, and we also have Alex Katsura from Prison Policy here to help us answer questions. I believe Alex is on Zoom. Assembly Bill 477 is a cleanup bill to Assembly Bill 450 of the 2019 session. This bill is necessary in order to help Nevada comply with the 2019 state law. In 2019, Nevada took steps to address the issue of prison gerrymandering. Prison gerrymandering is the act of counting incarcerated persons as residents of an area where the prison is located and gives inflated representation to that community. So in 2019, we presented Assembly Bill 450 that changed the law to make sure that incarcerated persons would be counted at their last known place of residence instead of at a prison instead of at the prison where they were incarcerated. And this is solely for the purposes of census counting to redraw redistricting lines. Challenges in the data collection and implementation of Assembly Bill 450 have arisen and were identified after the 2020 census, when just over half, it was 51.5%, of the prison population were properly allocated based on their previous Nevada residence. Inmates who could not be reallocated remained counted within the population of the jurisdiction where the prison was located. This bill builds upon our earlier efforts enhancing data accuracy and ensuring that our redistricting process reflects the true populations of our communities. That's simply it. All we are trying to do is make sure that the incarcerated persons are counted in the areas that they will return to once they leave prison. This allows us to accurately draw our legislative, congressional, and Board of Regents districts. This is about getting accurate numbers for the next census and the next redistricting. With that, I'm going to hand it over to my co-presenter to see if she'd like to make any remarks.
Good afternoon, Chair Mosca and committee members. For the record, my name is Emily Prasad Zamora, and my last name is spelled PERSAUD-ZAMORA. I am the Executive Director of Silver State Voices, here to co-present AB 477. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Assemblymember Hadigi for this opportunity and for working with us on this issue since 2019. Here we are 6 years later, same room, better lighting, and better outfits. But AB 477, actually, I'm really excited that we're presenting today because today's a 5-year anniversary until the next census, April 1st, 2030. So it's a very timely that we are having this hearing today. AB 477, as the Assembly member indicated, builds on AB 450. I'm just going to give a little bit of context around what prison gerrymandering is and census and redistricting, because I believe there were only 3 individuals that were on this committee in 2019 when this bill was originally heard. So if you didn't know, the US government conducts the census every 10 years, the last one happening in 2020, the next one in 2030. It is the only survey that the US government does mandate everybody in the United States to fill out. The goal of the census is to count the number of people living in the country. The federal government complies and analyzes the census data and then provides it to states. From there, states use census data for redistricting. Each state has its process for reapportionment and redistricting. Here in Nevada, redistricting occurs via the legislature. Anyone can create maps and provide feedback, and ultimately, you all, if you're still here in 2030, will be the ones that will be drawing up the new maps in 2031. It is during the redistricting process that you may hear the term gerrymandering. And again, gerrymandering is the intentional manipulation of maps to create an advantage for a particular candidate, party, or groups of people. Prison gerrymandering is gerrymandering maps using prison population data. As the Assembly member indicated, in AB 450, throughout this process, after everything happened within redistricting and during the interim redistricting committee, we realized that there were a couple of different issues with the overall process. And so the following things were the things that were brought more to our attention. There were issues with data quality, such as incomplete addresses, information, errors, or typos, and incompatible addresses like PO boxes, which we cannot use for redistricting, or formatting errors. There was also a lack of clarity and guidance around what type of addresses to use and how to count unallocated inmates. Following that, we pretty much came to the conclusion that after the redistricting process, we needed to have an overhaul around this particular policy, and that's how we have AB 477. AB 477 does not have the intent of changing the overall whole entire process, but it's just to clarify what type of addresses and data NDOC should be collecting and providing more guidance on inmates who do not have a last known residential address and what should be particularly done. We believe that AB 477 will provide clearer guidelines for NDOC and the state demographer on how to better fulfill the spirit of AB 450, prohibiting prison gerrymandering.
And with that, Madam Chair, we are open to questions.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions? Assemblymember Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, you testified that this is to count them where they will be released back to, probably. That people released from prison generally go back to where they were before they were in prison. This, however, does not take into account people that are sentenced to life without the possibility of parole or death penalty that are not going to be released from prison. So has there been any thought to how to handle that or to address that at all?
Alex, are you with us? Can you talk to how other states have handled this?
Alex Pfister from the Prison Policy Initiative. So other states.
We're going to make sure that we can turn you up. Hold on one second. BPS, if we can please make sure the volume is turned up. Okay, let's test.
Testing.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So there were the vast majority of states and all states that have legislation on the issue just count everybody who is incarcerated back at their home address because the folks who are, while you're incarcerated, you should remain a resident of your home for pretty much any purpose. And I don't think I have, let me see if I have Nevada's. Yeah, so in Nevada, for example, so we're talking about where you get counted for representation. And in Nevada, like in most states, the state constitution actually says that your residence is not gained or lost solely for reasons of being confined in any public prison. So legally, for redistricting purposes, however long you're incarcerated, you retain your residence of your home address for representational purposes.
Thank you for the clarification and thank you for the question, Chair.
And thank you, Assemblymember Sandra Howdigi, for the record. But I think that is something that I failed to mention that I did find when we originally carried the bill and in I had done that. our Nevada Constitution, for the purposes of voting, says that people in prison should be counted as residents of their hometowns. And so we've actually been in conflict prior to the 2019 with our constitutional law.
Thank you. Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm one of the three that were here when we originally passed that. So I just want to say thank you for the cleanup language for this policy. No question, just a statement.
Thank you. And I believe, seeing no others, we will move on to support testimony. So thank you so much. We will now move on to support testimony. We will again limit our testimony in 30-minute blocks for each side. And it is the same number, so 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 825-8021-1526. So we will start here in Carson City for support of Assembly Bill 477. You have 2 minutes, and don't forget to state and spell your name for the record. And you may begin when you are ready.
Chair Mosca, Vice Chair Gonzalez, and members of the committee, Esmeralda Vasquez, ESMERALDAVAZQUEZ, with Strategies 360 today on behalf of Campaign Legal Center. Campaign Legal Center supports AB 477, a bill that would allow Nevada to fully implement the law it passed in 2019, with the intention to end prison gerrymandering. Prison gerrymandering distorts the democratic process by counting incarcerated individuals where they are in prison rather than their legal residency for the purpose of redistricting. In states that engage in prison gerrymandering, elected officials in jurisdictions that house prisons represent large populations of people, disproportionately low-income people of color, who have no connection to the area, who cannot vote there, and who have no friends, family, or communities of interest that can advocate on their behalf. Prison gerrymandering also artificially inflates the voting power of districts with prisons while disempowering communities where the incarcerated individuals lived before and where they will ultimately return. This legislature took an important step towards ending this practice in 2019, but during the 2020 redistricting cycle, Nevada only reallocated 65% of people in state prison back to their home communities. The reform in this bill should ensure an improved process during the next redistricting cycle. Proper implementation is vital to the effectiveness of any major policy, and we applaud this committee for tackling this issue and considering reforms that will continue to improve the laws on the books. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mosca, members of the committee. My name is Eric Jeng, ERICJENG. I'm the Executive Director of One API Nevada, advocating for the fast-growing Asian American community. Want to thank Majority Leader Howdigi for presenting this bill, and also with Silver State Voices. This bill promotes fair and equitable representation in our electoral process. Our community has experienced significant growth, and accurate representation is vital to address our community's needs effectively. So this bill is part of that process, ensuring that all individuals, including incarcerated persons, are counted appropriately, will help maintain the integrity of our democratic system and ensure that resources are allocated fairly to support all communities. So for these reasons, we strongly support AB 477 and urge this committee to consider its passage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we will now, seeing no others in Carson City, we will move down to Las Vegas.
Greetings, Chair Mosca and the Legis Ops Committee. My name is Jagada Chambers, JAGADACHAMBERS. I want to thank the Honorable Majority Leader for bringing the legislation forward. AB 47 is legislation that I am in complete support of. I am a formerly incarcerated man who returned to society, assuming everyone knew where I had been and that everyone wanted me to go back there. This legislation has a simple message saying that everyone in a cage now comes from a family, a home, and in particular, an address, as well as a neighborhood. Inquiring into that simple question will substantiate to our folks inside that someone cares where you come from and where you're headed upon your release. This piece of legislation picks up on efforts that have been previously engaged. And I think the effort was able to get a little less than 70%. But with this question and the efforts for the NDLC to get the remaining balance, I'm definitely positive that it'll have a positive impact in our Department of Corrections. And then finally, the most important aspect of the bill is the potential for every one of our voting legislators to see our folks in the Nevada Department of Corrections as constituents of theirs, and not returning cancers to our communities. I'll say that much. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. And seeing no others coming in Las Vegas, AVH, we will open the phone lines for support in Assembly Bill 477.
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 477, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Members of the committee, my name is Paula Luna. That's Paula-Luna. I am the Deputy Director of Battleborn Progress, and I am testifying in strong support of this legislation. Accurate data is the only way to get an accurate census. Lumping all incarcerated people into the district of the institution is a disservice to our communities. Ensuring people are counted for the communities where they reside when released assures effective planning and services for those communities. We thank Majority Floor Leader Hadeghi for sponsoring this bill, and we urge this committee to pass AB 477. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Thank you, Chair. We have no additional callers in support at this time.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 477. We'll start here in Carson City. Seeing none, we will move to Las Vegas. And seeing none, we will open the phone lines, AVH, for opposition of Assembly Bill 477.
To testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 477, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
This is Iris Stone, Iristone. For the record, the Nevada prison population fluctuates annually from 20,000 to a high of 45,000 because people cycle through local jails relatively quickly. So the prison population is an ever-moving target. This bill requires the director for the first time to collect and maintain an electronic record of each offender and assign a unique identifying number that cannot be linked to the inmate's name or any other ID number used in the department. In other words, it's anonymous and completely standalone. Due to the anonymous nature of these records, it will be a challenge to maintain the accuracy or validity of these records, hence people may be added, but possibly never removed. Also, no logical reason is given as to why the director must single out a separate category for Latino inmates. This is discriminatory. It should be noted that AB 477 doesn't require tracking citizen status or whether the person is on the federal illegal immigration list. Therefore, one can assume that potentially thousands of illegals will be counted for the purposes of the census. In addition, there's no time frame within which inmates are counted. After all, the definition of an inmate is, quote, a person who was determined to be incarcerated in a facility at the last preceding national decennial census conducted. So we could be accumulating inmates, bringing the total number well over the annual high of 45,000 mentioned earlier. Another requirement is to track the last known address before imprisonment and any alternative residence of the inmate. How are these residencies verified? Furthermore, if there is no known Nevada residential address, the director, quote, must count the inmate as a resident not tied to a specific block, unquote. So inmates who never lived in Nevada are counted for congressional apportionment. This violates NRS 360.288. It seems to me in conclusion
Ms.
that the
Stone, you
primary
are
reason
at
for
your
instituting
2
this
minutes,
new,
but you can submit it in written
okay,
testimony. Appreciate you. Thank you. ABH, next caller.
yeah.
Hello again. This is Ellen Gifford. The Legislative Council's digest for AB 477 states that the state demographer shall revise the population counts to count certain inmates in the block group, and census tract of the inmate's last known residential address before incarceration. Please note that NRS 360-288 actually reads, in part, that the state demographer shall revise the population counts to count every inmate who was a resident of the state before incarceration. Section 3 of this bill goes on to say that for every inmate for whom the last known residential address is unknown, or whose last known residential address was not in this state, the state demographer must count the inmate as a resident of a state unit, not tied to a specific block group, census tract, or other geographical unit. This bill does not define that term, state unit, and that term is not found anywhere in statute chapters 440, 360, or 361 that deal with land or property statutes. Will this state unit information end up in the census? And if it does, NRS 360-288 will be violated. Who will be defining this term so that the process will be clear? Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Thank you, Chair. We have no additional callers in opposition.
Thank you. And next we will have neutral testimony in Assembly Bill 477. We'll start here in Carson City. And seeing none in neutral, we'll go down to Las Vegas. And seeing none in Las Vegas, we'll go back to AVH for neutral for Assembly Bill 477.
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 477, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Okay, thank you. And first we'll go to Assemblymember Miller.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the indulgence. I don't have a question, but I want to thank a Majority Leader and her co-presenter. You know, bills like this ring very similar to, the damaging 3/5 compromise that was made a few hundred years ago, where enslaved Black individuals were basically counted as 3/5 of a person, and 3/5 of the enslaved population was counted toward, or 3/5 of the enslaved were counted toward those states' populations. And while it may only be a symbolic gesture, it is important because it moves in the right direction of saying that all people count, and that if we were going to count people while restricting their rights and abilities, that's just not who we are as Nevadans. And I appreciate that as Nevadans, we always continue to strive toward rectifying, again, even if it's just symbolic, the wrongs of the past in the right direction. And so I appreciate and thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. And with that, closing remarks from our bill sponsors and presenters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the committee for the opportunity to present Assembly Bill 477. And I think our gentleman who testified in support from Las Vegas said it best. These people are constituents of ours, and they will return home to our districts. And we do want to address some of the remarks made during opposition, but I'm going to hand it over to my co-presenter to address some of those. So thank you, committee.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Mosca and committee members. For the record, again, Emily Prasad Zamora. And there were a couple of things that were said in the opposing testimony that I wanted to go ahead and address. First and foremost, this bill only addresses prisons. It does not address jails. In this committee, you all have extensively discussed the difference between jails and prisons. And so I wanted to say that for the record, that it only is applicable to prisons, as jails are not within the jurisdiction of NDOC. And so we're specifically talking about the 10 conservation camps, 9 correctional facilities, and the 2 transitional housing units that are here within the state of Nevada. So the second thing that I wanted to address is the notion around folks' immigration status. There is a clear difference between census and what the census does and redistricting. One has to happen for the other one to occur, but regardless of your immigration status, all folks of any type of immigration status that are residents of a state should fill out the census. And the Nevada Constitution is very clear that regardless of immigration status or any type of status, if you are a resident of Nevada, you should be included within the redistricting process. Beyond that, I just wanted to again thank the committee for the opportunity, Assemblywoman Hadagi for going on this journey with us, and last but definitely not least, my team that's worked really hard on this issue for the last 6 years. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 477. Thank you. And our last item of business is public comment. Each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Written public comment may also be submitted to the committee up to 24 hours after the meeting. Members of the public may comment on anything related to legislative operations and elections, but this is not a time to comment on bills that have already been discussed during today's meeting. I'll remind everyone that the call-in number and meeting ID for those wishing to provide public comment over the phone is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 825-8021-1526. Is there anyone wishing to give public comment here in Carson City? Seeing none, we will go to Las Vegas. And seeing none, AVH, let's open the phone lines for public comment, please.
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. I want to first thank the committee members. I did think this meeting was going to go over longer, so appreciate you for being here today at 3:30. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, April 3rd at 4 p.m. in room 4100. So note that our meeting will be at the regular time, but in a different room, 4100. And with that, seeing no other business before us, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.